Bonjour, aloha, hello,
Aloha.
and welcome. Give folks a chance to get here. Hello, Jonathan. Thank you very much for agreeing to come on.
Oh, sure.
Um,
Thanks
I
for the
was
invite.
I was really intrigued when I found out about you. Then I watched a couple of your shows. I was like, oh, I got to get him to come on. So,
Thank you.
um, hello, Amy. Hello, Linda, and please go to Jonathan's website. It's in the description box below. Plus, I have it in the chat as well. And subscribe, like, subscribe, and share. And just a little reminder something that I just learned this past week is that if you go back in to the show after it's over and you leave a comment in the comment sections, it will boost the algorithm. I don't know how or what it does, but there, from what I found out, it will actually boost up on the algorithm. So not just on
Oh,
the chat, but if you go back and leave a comment, an emoji, whatever you want to say, um, that
and
helps.
aloha.
And aloha, and that helps the algorithm. So, and okay, get that part out of the way. And let's see where to start. I guess. So, how long have you been doing? You do past life regressions and
Yeah. So my
spiritual
whole
evolution.
so the evolution of me and the past life thing. So when I was about 13, I was going to a summer camp in New Jersey, and like for 4 years in a row. Actually, it was like from 12 to 15. I think it was when I went. I was 12, 13, 14, and 15. That's when I went. I'm pretty sure it was either 13 or 14. I can't remember. Or no, it was 13 right before I turned 14. Um, there was a guy there who taught a class. So the way the summer camp was set up, you had your major, which was like the main thing you did. Most people did like music or drama camp or whatever. I
Yeah,
was so many Shakespeare plays because of that.
yeah, I was in the drama camp too.
Mine which were like little classes that you took like on the side, and sometimes it was like a couple times a week, sometimes it was 4 times a week, whatever. Um, so this guy offered a class that I immediately signed up for. I don't remember what he called it. Um, New Age exploration or something like that. I can't remember the exact name, but it was. He introduced the tarot. He introduced runes. He introduced pendulums, energy work, crystal work, like the whole gambit, everything you could
Oh,
imagine.
wow.
And one of the things he did for us as a group, as a class, we had everyone gather at this one classroom. They had the AC going through the summer, and New Jersey is hot then. And he had everyone just lay on the ground in this class, and he did a guided meditation for the whole group. And then afterwards, we sat in a circle and talked about the memories that came up for us.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and he did warn us at the time that like once you start going down this path, once you start having memories, other doors are going to fly open and more memories are going to come. So that's what got me
Yeah.
started. I had a very vivid memory when he did it of being in Rome. I remember I was blonde, pretty tan. I had just bought my freedom and no longer a slave. I had been a sculptor, I want to say, and it's just like a flash, right? And I remember walking down the street of Rome, ancient Rome, and looking up and seeing that there was two suns, so knowing the gods were like blessing my freedom, right?
Oh,
And
that's
it
cool.
was later that I realized that the two suns thing, one of them was obviously the Star of Bethlehem, because it was like the normal big yellow sun, and there was a small blue sun. And they say that back then, like that nova that was called the Star of Bethlehem was seen during night and day for like a whole week. Um,
Okay.
and so that kind of put the time period for me in place. But it was just interesting that like I don't know, that just kind of what got started for me. And then it was either that year or later, like a couple years later, I ended up discovering a used bookstore that had like a whole little occult section, which I loved. But I ended up getting this book, Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian.
Okay.
This is a classic. This is all about like this hypnosis guy. He accidentally discovered how to do past life regression with people. It was a 1988 copyright on here.
Okay.
And so
1988. I was busy raising children.
Right? So he took this young patient was having issues. He started doing hypnosis to try and bring her back, going back and back, and then taking her all the way to a past life where that shocked both of them. And then it started this whole thing for him. He became like the guy who started the past life regression thing, really. In that same bookstore when I was a teenager, I also discovered the Reincarnation Workbook.
Okay. Very good. Are those still available can you still get them, or are they out of circulation?
I'm not sure. Both of them I've had.
I'll have to look them up afterwards.
Yeah, and this one is from 1989. So I'm pretty sure
in the late 80s, I was busy raising kids and taking care of a husband.
Out there. So yeah.
Okay, very good. Yeah, it's something I can pick up and read. So, I've always been very interested in the paranormal. When I was a little girl, I would hear a voice talk to me all the time. I always tell people, think of Darth Vader. That's what the voice sounded like, James Earl Jones. Just that deep bass male voice that would just talk to me, and I would talk back. And family or somebody would walk in the room and be like, who are you talking to? And I would go, God. And they would be like, oh, okay. And that was it. It was never a big deal made about it. And then when I was eight or nine, we went to Florida for the first time. And when we arrived in the middle of the night, when we walked in the family's home that we were going to visit, the minute we walked in the door, I stopped in my tracks and said, oh, I've been here before. And everybody was like, no, we've never been here before. And I was like, no, I've been here before. And I proceeded to tell them where every room in the house was, whose room it was, what color everything was. It was like a complete layout of the whole house.
Wow.
And my mother just looked at me and said, oh, you've got the gift. That's all she said. It was never discussed.
Never discussed.
It was just never talked about, but it wasn't, no one reacted like, oh, that's a bad thing, an evil thing, don't do that. It was never like that. It was just like, oh, okay, you got it too. Like brown hair and blue eyes or something. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, my grandmother would be 5 minutes before the phone would ring. She would be like, go get the phone. Aunt so-and-so's calling. Within a few minutes, the phone would ring, and that's who would be on the phone. Mm-hmm. She would just know.
That was me as a kid. I always, as soon as the phone would ring once, I'd be like, oh, that's so-and-so.
Yeah, and this was back in the day before there was caller ID or anything like that. I mean, we still had party lines back then. We're talking back in the 60s.
Right. Well, for me, it was the 80s, but it was still like, people were like, how did you know? I'm like, it rang differently. I couldn't explain it other than it sounded different to me than the other rings.
Right.
I always knew when my grandmother was calling. It had a very specific ring, right? And people were like, what do you mean? I'm like, it just rings different. I don't know how else to describe it.
And no one else can hear the difference. Yeah, I get it. I mean, my grandmother was like that. She would know who was calling. She would know if someone was going to show up at the house unexpected. Suddenly she'd get up and be rushing around trying to pick things up, saying, well, so-and-so's coming. And sure enough, that's who would show up that day. I had aunts and cousins and stuff that different variations. Some were mediums, I guess. They would see when people would die. That's who the ghost would come to give a message to whatever family member it needed to go to. And my mother would have visions, but she would have visions of people's dying, of their death, of
Oh.
how they died, especially if it was like really traumatic. And I only know that because when I was around, I guess around 12 or 13, she was a bartender at the NCO club. We lived in Florida, right next to base. And two retired pilots, were there with some other gentlemen. They were drinking and carrying on at their table. And she looked up to see if any of them needed a refill. And boom, this vision hit her. And she saw these two pilots in a plane together and the plane exploding in midair.
Oh, wow.
And it just really shook her so much. She said she literally dropped the glass in the sink that she was washing. And all of a sudden, to her side, she hears this man say, "Don't tell them what you saw." She turned around and looked. There's this man sitting at the end of the bar. Well, he had to have walked right in front of her to get to that end of the bar because the door was on the other end. And she just looked at him and said, "Excuse me." And he said, "Don't tell them what you saw."
Uh-huh.
And she turned around to look at the men, and she turned back to ask him why, and he was gone. There was no one there.
Mhm.
And so she didn't tell him. And the next day, they were on base, and a new test plane was brought in. And the pilot that was supposed to be there to do the test flight was sick or got hurt the day before or something. He wasn't there. And these two retired pilots were like, "Well, we're here. We'll take it up." Sure enough, the plane exploded in midair and they both died. And it really upset my mother. And that's the only reason why I know about it, because her sister also lived in Florida. And I overheard the conversation of her telling her sister about what had happened and about the whole thing from the night before and the vision. And she was so upset. And I know she had others after that, but she wouldn't talk about it. They just really freaked her out. She just was like, she didn't want to talk about it at all. But if anybody else, or whenever I would show any inklings of psychic abilities, she would just shrug it off like, "That's no big deal,"
Right.
just
She
part of the
told you
family.
on a daily basis.
Yeah, it was like she didn't want to scare me away from it, but at the same time, she didn't want, I guess she didn't want me to just like focus in on it 100%, probably because she was a little afraid of it, I think, or afraid of what my gifts might be. And of course, I grew up, I got married, I had kids, and all that stuff kind of got pushed to the back.
To the side.
And every now and again, something would happen and it would poke its way out. And my late husband was like, "That stuff doesn't exist. That's not real." I'd be like, "Yeah, it does exist and it is real," but
Right.
it was just one of those things. We didn't talk about it because he didn't want to hear about it, until something would happen and he was right there witnessing it, and he'd look at me and go, "Okay, I guess you're right." And that would be about it, but and I just never pursued it at all. It was there.
I had a
It was
different experience with my mother because
Yeah,
she
it's just,
she encouraged it. She wanted me to listen to my dream. She wanted me to pay attention to the invisible world that no one else could see. Um, she encouraged it because she had it in herself, and it got squished. Right when she was
yeah,
a little girl, she would see like these glowing orbs come and play around her, and she was very little. There was a ghost in her house that she used to interact with on a regular basis, and she said the ghost one time picked her up and put her on the dresser, and then her mom came in and the ghost vanished, of course, and then she got in trouble for climbing the dresser, and she's trying to explain that I didn't climb, that Mary put me up here, and who's Mary, and right. So for her, anytime she expressed it, it got squished, told it wasn't real. So anytime I expressed it, she tried to encourage it and build it up in me.
yeah. When I was I guess I was around 12 or 13. It was before the vision incident with my mother. And we lived in this old apartment. It was like 4 or 5 apartments just kind of stuck together in a long line. And the one that we were in was haunted, most definitely. And nobody believed us anytime any of us would, weird stuff would happen. But I watched my mother get thrown across the room one day.
Wow.
And I was on the other side of the room sitting on the couch. She was across the room from me in the kitchen. It was just like a great big giant L-shaped room. And I watched her open the refrigerator door, and it was like something just shoved her, and she flew straight back. I mean, in a way that you can't make yourself do. You would have to get really shoved or pulled, and literally thrown against the back wall. And we didn't live there very long before we moved. But she would wake up in the morning and she would have bruises and scratches all over her. Now, it never touched me or my brother, but it would attack her. Whatever it was did not. I don't know if he just hated women or, what the deal was, but she was the one that would get attacked. And my
mom had the incident when she was, how old was I? I remember I was little. But there was an incident where, like, every time she went to vacuum, every time the vacuum was on, we both could hear, like, people talking. People are talking. As soon as the vacuum went off, you couldn't hear it anymore. I'm like,
wow, that's kind of wild.
Right? And then she turned the vacuum back on, and we'd hear people talking again. And it was only in this one apartment we lived in, and it only ever happened when the vacuum was on. And we didn't figure out what was going on. And at one point, I forget what she even said to it, something like, "Shut up, we don't want to hear it anymore," or something like that. And like the clock on the wall just dropped and shattered. So,
I mean, all throughout my childhood, I can remember, when I really, really go back and think about it, I remember, little things, and my mom would be like, "Just cut it out." You'd be like, "Who are you talking to, Mom?" Nobody. But whatever it was bugging her, and she was like, "Just, I know." She was working late one night, and my brother and I had already gone to bed by the time she got home. And the next thing I know, she was almost hysterical, waking me up, wanting to know, why did I punch him? And I'm like, what? And she was like, why did you hit your brother? And I'm like, I didn't hit my brother. He's in bed asleep. I went to bed and went to sleep. She got home and gone in to check on us, and his pillow was like saturated in blood, and his nose was just pouring blood. And she thought we had gotten a fight, because back then my brother and I fought like cats and dogs. And and she thought I had punched him, and he just went in his room and shut the door and fell asleep with his nose bleeding. But I was flipping out. I was like, I don't have any idea what happened. Trips to the doctor, this, that, and they couldn't find anything wrong. So who knows? We don't know what happened there. But
have you seen any apparitions, though? Have you seen any like full body figures or anything like that?
Not whole body, but over the years, I've seen what could be considered like flashes of movement. Usually it'll be like out of the corner of my eye, and I'll turn and look, and there's nothing there, of course, that I can see. But I know I saw something, and a lot of feeling. I remember once my husband was working with a guy, and who was, a young married guy, and he invited us to come over to their house. Come over and smoke a joint. Let's hang out for a while. And we're like, yeah, cool. And we go over there, and we pulled up in the driveway, and it hit me like a brick wall. I was like, I can't go in that house. And my husband got furious with me. I wouldn't even get out of the car. I was like, I can't go in that house. It's evil in there. I can't. It terrified me to the point that I was getting physically ill in the car. And I said, just go tell them that I got sick and you have to take me home, and you can go back if you want, but I can't go in there. And a couple of days later, they came by our house, and the wife told me, she said, yeah, there's something wrong in that house. She says, wake up in the middle of the night and all the burners on the gas stove will be turned on, but the pilot light will be blown out, So the room's just filling with gas. And they, and they tried to see if it was just the knobs were worn out and it would just, turn on its own. But no, you would have to like push it in to turn it, type of deal. And all kinds of other weird stuff happened. And she was like, when you refused to come in the house the other day, she says, I realized you could feel what was here. She says, I hate living here and I can't get them to move because it's really cheap. And I was like, yeah, I bet.
Right. But, there's a reason why the cheap houses are cheap.
That's it. There's a reason why it's so cheap.
Right.
But it's just been little things like that all my life. And I've never been hypnotized that I'm aware of. Although I've considered.
I don't call what I do hypnosis. I call it guided meditation.
Yeah. Well, I've started to do it a couple of times to try to stop smoking, thinking, well, maybe if I can get hypnotized, I can quit smoking. But there's something about giving up control to someone that I don't know.
Right.
To take over my brain and tell me what to do, it kind of freaks me out a little bit. It's one thing to go to be walked through a guided meditation, because I'll do those. And it's totally different to have somebody going in and programming your brain. Yeah, on how you're going to do things. It's like, yeah, I don't think so. So I've never actually done it, but I've always been really intrigued when I hear people talk about past lives. And I've been told by other very strong psychics that I'm a very old soul. I had one of those star seed reports done to pinpoint like where you come from.
Right.
And they came back and said, you're so old, you're before any of these existed. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. And they're like, that's what it says. It's you've got a little bit of this and this and this. It's like you kind of
that's kind of me too. The whole starseed thing. When you look into like the different types of starseeds, I'm like, I've been all of them at some point or another. They all
it was. You know what I mean by it? It's like it's just kind of weird because you get people say, oh, well, I'm Palladian or I'm Arcturian or I'm I come from there.
I come from before that.
And I did a report and they said, oh, you're way before that even existed. I'm like, okay. Well, I was like, well, what's wrong with me that I have to keep coming back? I said, how come I'm not learning my lesson?
We're coming back for lessons. We're coming back to teach.
To teach. Yeah, that's what I've been told. That's what I was told. You're like, you're not here to learn anything. You're here to teach people. And I'm like,
we're here to help uplift the collective is what we're
there doing. You go. And that's how it's been explained to me. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, because at first I was like, well, how come I know I'm hard-headed, but it's like they keep sending me back. What's the deal? So
no, we're volunteering. We just forget about the volunteerism until we're by ourselves.
That's it. And so it's I fell into this community and discovered it when the lockdown hit. I just lost my mom after 10 years of dealing with dementia. And then the lockdown hit, everybody getting sick, couldn't go anywhere. Thank God I didn't lose my job. I was able to do it from home. But I was in a really bad place myself. And I just got on YouTube looking for stuff to cheer me up. And I came across a channel that did political tarot, progressive political tarot. And I was like, that exists? I didn't even know that existed. Yeah. And from there, I found another channel to another channel to it.
Right.
And it just kind of snowballed. In the first probably 6 months, I never chatted. I never said a word to anybody. I just watched and listened and would watch the chat. And I just couldn't get over how caring everybody was and just non-judgmental. It really struck me. It was like, wow, I kept waiting for the claws to come out. And nothing ever happened. And finally one night watching a show, and it was kind of a wild night. And I couldn't help myself. That smart ass in me came out. And I had to throw my 10 cents worth in, and next thing I know, I was bombarded with people talking to me. It's like, well, we've been waiting for you to say something. Because they could see me, I guess, if anybody looked to see who was in the room. But and it took a while, and then yeah, I guess from there it just kind of, I kept having people tell me, you're psychic. I'm like, yeah, a little bit. No, you're psychic. You're supposed to be doing this, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And one lady that is in like all the chat rooms, Cardamancy Mesquite is her name. Angela, she's a sweetheart. She messaged me one day and said, send me your address. And I went, why? She said, because I'm going to send you some cards so you can learn how to read cards.
Oh,
And so
wow.
she sent me my first 2 deck of cards that I ever got. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. And then I started seeing people use oracle cards. And that intrigued me. It was something clicked when I saw that. And
Actually, to share with you.
You got a one. Ooh.
I don't think this one's in production anymore, but this is an amazing oracle. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look. See if I can. Have you ever used
A Ouija board? Yes.
a Ouija? I did once when I was a teenager, and had a very bad experience off of it. That scared the living hell out of me, and I threw it away, and I never used one again. That's how bad it scared me.
I took my aunt's Ouija board from the 70s. In the late 80s, I took it to summer camp, and we played with it constantly.
Yeah. This was a homemade one. Somebody I knew made one.
Oh.
They had seen one, and they knew what it was, so they made one so we could play. And some really wild stuff happened that night, and it freaked me out so bad. I was like, get that out of my house. I don't ever want to see that again. It scared me. I wasn't expecting it to be that strong, to come across that way. It was like nobody else was getting a reaction if they were doing it, and I was just watching. But the minute I would put my hand on the planchette, it would go nuts, and it was just freaking me out. It was like, okay,
I
don't want to do this anymore.
Pushing. I'm like, I'm not pushing. I'm touching as lightly as anyone else.
Yeah, they were fussing at me, saying, stop making it do that. I'm like, I'm not doing anything. And of course, the minute I take my hand off, he would stop moving. And I think they finally realized it when at one point I went to put my hand on it, and before I even touched it, the damn thing started moving when my fingers just got close to it.
Yeah.
And I pulled my hand away, and it stopped moving again. And everybody was like, okay, that's weird. And I'm like, yeah, to say the least. But
so Mama Bear, the deck is Uncover Your Past Lives Oracle by
Mandy Peterson. Okay, I'm going to have to look into that.
I don't know
if you find it, Mama Bear, let me know. It might be on eBay somewhere.
It could be on
Probably
eBay
for like a couple $100
I
or
backed
something.
the Kickstarter, and it is a round deck with purple edges.
Oh, no, that's cool.
The thing I really love about this deck, though, is the backs have information on them, like identity, time frame, lesson, death, location.
Yeah.
But then each card itself is also one. So like this is the industry card, but then depending on which side pops up, right? So you were local artisan. You were a money handler.
Money handler, yeah. You're a manufacturer.
So the thing
That's
I really love
cool.
about this,
I like that.
fronts and backs are used for the reading. And it's just like it gives you a lot of detail.
I mean, if you knew somebody with a deck where you could take pictures of each card, you could make your own if it's no longer in production, just for your own personal use. And that would be kind of cool.
He has I want to say a Etsy store. You might check on there. It also came with with a book.
Etsy has a lot of really cool stuff on there.
Let me see.
And then I check eBay a lot. I've got a couple of the sellers that I've got tagged. Anytime they put something up, I get an email notification. And on eBay, and then Amazon, I'm always looking on there because you can find stuff for sale. And then I just discovered like a couple of weeks ago that we have a spiritual store, Emerald House Publishing. Okay.
MysticMandy.com. Yeah. Try that.
Wait, let me write that down. MysticMandy.com. Cool. All right. I'll have to go and check that out. Maybe you can still get it. Just
you might still be able to find it somewhere, but I know that people are having a hard time finding it these days. Like when it first came out, people were either having it or she had extras on her store, and then people who didn't vibe with it were selling it, so it wasn't that hard to come across. But I think it's now become more rare.
Yeah, especially if you're not making them anymore. Hi, Kelly. And
Hi, Kelly.
So yeah, that's awesome. I love that deck. I'm gonna have to look.
Oh, it's cool. I love it.
I'm very into oracle cards. Well, this I just
find this oracle. There is a really good book on Amazon. I paid extra for the full color version, but you can get it on like as an ebook or whatever. And it is the Samsara Tarot book by Sarah Paul, and it's readings for reincarnating souls.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
not just on this deck.
So many different spreads. Like, yeah, it's kind of crazy how many spreads are in here. Let's see. There's because they also like give you pages for writing up. Yeah, so they give you pages so you can write up people's readings for them. And
I just had this deck show up about 2 weeks ago, called the Witch's Wisdom Oracle deck.
Oh, that's cool.
And I don't know who it came from. It was an anonymous gift.
Oh, good. You can get that.
It showed up, and then
I love that.
I had one of the chatters. We were in a chat room the other day, the day after Dr. Lena and Sienna or whatever her name is. They just did a new tarot deck called One World Tarot that they just got published and put out. And I got an email from her saying, I'm sending you one. So,
this is a life reading. So
that's cool.
Looking for a theme running from life to life, basically. Right? So then you can be like, oh, this is the thing that keeps reoccurring.
Sienna Rose. Thank you, Kelly. I knew it was an S. I just couldn't remember the name. Mama Bear said she checked.
Past life reading. Yeah, this book is just full of readings, chock full of readings. Like,
oh wow, that's cool. I like stuff like that where you can go in and play around with it and practice.
10 card past life reading.
That's really neat.
There's a lot of readings in here. The one that I don't know if I would ever use ever is the probable death reading. This is the reading to like know how you're gonna die and when in this life. I'm like,
no, I know it's gonna happen. I don't need to know when.
While it's here and not like worry about how many days they got left. So
yeah, or possibly change the way you do stuff to try to prevent it from happening, and that's what causes it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so Mama Bear said she found the deck, that she still has it on her website, but it's for like $64.
Well, that's not bad at all.
That's not a bad deal for.
Well, and it's got a ton of cards. I forget how many cards are even in here, but there's a lot of cards. And like I said, you can use both sides. So
Ben's got a question. Do you have a favorite deck for reading past life readings?
I actually pulled 3 that I like to use because I had a feeling that question was going to come up. The ones that I started with, the Julie Kusho Ma'at Tarot, I used quite a bunch for past life readings. And then I started using the Ancestral Path. No, I started using Ancestral Path, and then I was able to get this. But these are like some of my top, not just reincarnation, but also ancestor readings.
Okay.
And the Carrie Paris Relative Tarot, I think, would be a really good one.
Oh, wow.
I think this one probably is my favorite because it uses photos that remind me of like the photos I saw growing up of my like ancestors and relatives and stuff, right? So it's very like they took like I think it was like from 1800, like the beginning of photography.
Yeah.
Then just played around a little with like adding stuff like the rainbow of cups.
Right.
The 10 of cups, right?
Yeah, because I know back at the beginning, it didn't take long once photography kind of took off that photographers started figuring out how to insert spiritual stuff into the pictures, and
well, these are digitally enhanced by Carrie to add
right,
like add the cups for the 6 of cups here.
Right? Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And then you go into the background of how sad this is, and these 2 children were actually slaves, and they were paraded around like this constantly and had no choice in the matter.
No, of course not.
Right.
They weren't even thought. They weren't even thought of as human beings. They were thought of as things, property. They didn't even think of them. Ben, I saw they put that down, and I hear Gerald's voice in the back of my head. Purchase responsibly.
I actually got to interview Carrie about this deck on my channel, and it was great.
Oh, that would be cool. Let's see. Kelly says she's got someone sending her the past life cards by Doreen Virtue.
Oh, okay.
You'll have to tell me how that looks, Kelly. That sounds interesting.
I've seen.
I love oracle cards. Yeah. Just when I first started seeing them, it's like that's what really set it off for me. As I was starting this, was the oracle cards. It was like that's what I'm supposed to do. So.
Trying to think of any other decks that would be good. You know what? Tarot of the Divine, the one that has like the mythology from around the world. I think that would be a good one for past life readings.
Yeah, it helps if you have the right kind of deck for what it is you're trying to do.
Right. Well, that's why that's why this one really, like, once I got this, I couldn't not use this for past life readings. So.
And that was I'm writing this stuff down because I'm going to be making a wish list here.
Yeah, this one is US game, so this one's easy to get. The Ma'at, this is the original version that you can't get anymore, but I think Julie has it on not Make Playing Cards. I forget. It's one of those I think it's Printer Studio. You can order either this size or more like tarot size deck. So
yeah,
these are like they're huge cards. I love them.
Yeah, that's like that witches deck that I just got. They're so big. It's trying to figure out. I've been trying to figure out how to shuffle with them because
look at how
huge.
They are. There's my hands.
Yeah, and I'm sure your hands are smaller than my hands, and I fumble trying to shuffle some of the cards, some of the decks because they're so big. And those have some beautiful pictures in them, though.
Oh,
I love the color saturation in those. I really dig out on when things are really saturated with color, and it's vibrant. I have a thing for jewel tones and vibrant colors.
Look at this 7 of Swords. It's just
wow.
This
That is
deck,
cool.
I don't know. There's something about this deck that really just speaks to me.
Yeah. That is really.
And the thing that's the most amazing is every single one of these is one of Julie's oil paintings. So she painted every single one of these.
Oh, wow.
I mean, the sun is an egg getting fertilized.
That's good. See, I can't.
Symbology in here is
I'm what is known as arts and crafts challenged. I can't draw stick people.
Look at that high priestess.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. That's a beautiful picture.
There is nothing wrong. There is no card in here I don't appreciate. Ace of Wands.
Oh, I like that with the caduceus. I'm not saying it right, but anyway, we know what I'm talking about.
It's just that baby hand reaching out. Right? I love. I don't know. There's just something about this deck.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
This is definitely this is one of my treasures in my collection for sure, without a doubt.
Oh yeah. Well, that's me. I'm slowly getting more and more oracle decks.
Well, you got to remember, I've been slinging cards since that summer camp session, and
I've been doing it for 2 years.
I think I've been doing it now for 34 years or something like that.
Wow. Okay. So you got a lot of time to collect.
That's over 30 years. So, yeah. So and you know what? Even though I had been collecting, it was nothing compares to the collecting I had to do during 2020 and 2021 when I was just sitting around doing nothing.
Yes.
I think that's where the majority of my collection came in was 2020 and 2021.
Yeah. That's it. When I first discovered, fell into this community and actually started opening the doors back up again, and as things are starting to bombard and hit me, there are some days when it's too much. And, I've had several people tell me, you're a medium, you're a medium. And I'm like, I don't see dead people. I don't hear dead people. I don't think I want to. They're like, yeah, no, it'll happen. Don't worry about it. And I had a funeral to go to about a month ago. And when I pulled into the parking lot, I sat there for a minute and I thought, okay, Spirit, I don't want to see any dead people. I don't want to talk to any dead people. Let me just deal with this. And we'll go from there. What on earth? And he's like, I don't even, just give me a nice, gentle afternoon. And they did.
This is what you're asking about, Kelly? This one?
Isn't that gorgeous?
This is one of my wearable crystal grid necklaces that I make. Lapis lazuli skull to help me channel the guide. Freshwater pearls. These smaller ones are chevron amethyst.
Yeah.
So this is my third eye crown chakra necklace that I use for readings and stuff. But it just felt appropriate to put on when we're talking about past lives and stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, what's the process when you do this for someone? I mean, is there a certain process that you follow?
It starts with what is it that you want, because these are not. I don't think of this as jewelry. I think of it as a spiritual tool.
Right.
So I ask what it is, like the energy you want to bring in, what it is you want to either channel or embody or whatever it is. Because I've had people ask me to make a necklace to help them connect with the ancestors during readings. I've had someone ask me to make a necklace to bring them inner peace. I mean, it goes on. There's different ones.
What's the reason behind?
Specifically to connect with Mother Bear energy, and so.
What
I do is then I do a little research as to which crystals embody that thing, whatever it is we're working on, the best. I find a pendant. I have a lot of skulls because that's kind of how I started, was making the skull necklaces. But I have other pendants now of different crystals that are not skulls because I've had people keep asking, "Do you do anything other than skulls?"
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know.
Skulls kind of freak some people out.
I feel like the skull thing, it gives your guides and ancestors like a body to inhabit. Is how I think of it with the skull. So
Right.
it's a way of connecting with your guides a little easier. So then once I figure out what it is, the crystals that I want to use, I lay them out in front of me, and then I take a moment to just ask that person's guides to come in and help me make their piece. And I start with the middle, and I build outward, ending with the clasps. And once and a lot of times I don't even use all the crystals that are in front of me. The guides tell me which ones to use, and I sometimes it's like I'm working and it's hard, and other times I'm like, I look down and I have a finished necklace and how did that happen? So I mean, it just depends on how connected I am with the person, I think, or how much blockage that person is dealing with, because that translates over into the workings.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
There was one person who wanted something specifically to help break through blocks. That was one of the most difficult necklaces I made. Like, it fought me. I did not want to get made, but I was finally able to get through the whole process. And then once it's made, I do a ritual. I call it my 3-bath ritual. As soon as it's made, I put it out in the Maui sun to get blasted by the sunlight for depends on what is in there, because some crystals should not be exposed to too much sunlight. But I like having it out there in the sun just to blast any energy in the crystals that were left over, anything that got caught on because of me or whatever.
Right.
And that way it's a clean slate. I have a Tibetan salt lamp on my altar that I then drape the necklace over for a earth bath to help charge it up. And then, as I was telling you before we went live, I have close to 100 crystal skulls. So the 3rd bath is either new moon or full moon bath inside it's mainly crystal skulls, but there's other crystals, but a crystal grid made from crystal skulls.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then they charge. So the sun bath is for cleansing, the earth bath is for charging, and the moon bath is activating and connecting the energies to it.
Right. Yeah, because I know some crystals can counteract each other if they're not redirected in a way for them to work together. I've heard other people who deal mainly with crystals and stuff talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot when it comes to those things. I don't know very much about them.
Right. Well, I've been, like I said, I've been doing this for 30+ years. There's still crystals I'm learning about that I never knew existed. I mean, it's one of these things.
Yeah.
Once you start learning, it's a never-ending process, because there's always more to learn, more to find out, and it's it's a spiral where you keep coming back to the same thing you thought you knew and finding deeper meaning or deeper knowledge. Right.
Right. Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, just like with reading on cards, it's like I can pick up a deck and do a reading, say just a general reading on myself on Monday, and then Wednesday pick it up and just shuffle and see what's going to happen and get totally different meanings out of what it is that I'm looking at. And I know a lot of it is to do with just what's going on with me that day, what are my blockages that are happening, and what's something that maybe I need to deal with that I'm not even aware that I need to deal with it. And
well, that's true for a lot of people. They have issues they don't even realize they need to deal with.
I'm sorry, say that again.
That's true for a lot of people. We have issues we don't even realize we're dealing with, but other people can see them from the outside, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, you can look at someone and say, "Oh, you need to deal with ABC," but they're struggling for days trying to figure out what's what's got them off kilter, because you don't see it in yourself that much,
Right.
and it's
The internal.
being open and receptive enough to take what you're being told by others who see it, to say, oh wow, I didn't realize that that's where I need to go with this, or I mean, there's just so many things day-to-day life that we doesn't even have anything to do with anything like this, that we can
Right.
see
That we're still dealing with.
in others, that you need to chill out here, or you need to put more effort in there, and it's how well they respond can be very beneficial to how well that they're going to learn from that. Some people just, that wall goes up and they don't want to hear it. It's,
some people just keep repeating the lesson until they learn it, right?
Yeah, so that's very true.
I know there's been a few lessons myself that I kept repeating before I went, oh, right. Okay. What was I thinking?
Yeah. One of those things you're like, okay, I get it now. Yeah, I can't even say how many times I've finally, when the lesson clicks in and the light bulb goes off, and I sit there and think, oh, okay, Sherry, you've been making an ass out of yourself for a month.
It takes multiple lifetimes to learn the lesson.
That's why when I told I was as old as I am, I was like, well, what is it that I'm not learning that I have to keep coming back to repeat? And then for them to tell me, no, you're here to teach, not to. You've been through all of that before. And I'm like, okay, it still feels like I'm having to learn stuff, but whatever you say, you know more than me.
Well, part of it is.
And I guess we still have to learn every life.
Every life. Because we're born a blank slate and have to remember it all.
Well, that's like with the soul contracts. I know there's a couple of people who teach on that I keep saying we'll take a class once I get the extra money to do it, because I don't understand it. I don't really understand what it is that we decide what kind of life we're going to live before we ever get here. And it's like, well, why wouldn't everybody choose a wonderful, no problems life?
But there's no learning.
Because at that stage you can know and see things that you can't hear. So
exactly. Yeah, that's another book I was going to show you, the Akashic Record. I got this a long time ago, and that is really where that whole thing goes into. Is that like the fact that just because you signed a contract doesn't mean you can't go back to the Akashic Record and change the contract.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to work out a scheduling date with someone who's going to read mine for me. So go back and look and help me see what I can find out. And we just haven't been able to get our schedules together, and because we both work full time. So it's like you gotta kind of figure out a way to get around that. But yeah, that's interesting. Something that I want to learn how to do that I don't know yet. So there's so much that I want to learn how to do yesterday, because it's so interesting. And it's learning to say, okay, just one step at a time, Sherry. You'll get there. Just take a breath. And so when I run across folks like you and others, that are doing all these really interesting things, that's why I want them to come on the show, so I can find out more.
Well, one
so
thing
that I can learn a little bit.
One thing that I learned through the whole past life thing is in the before times, I was acupuncturist doing acupuncture facials at a spa here. And one of the things I did, they also had a separate teaching space. So I started doing group past life regressions. And during one of these group past life regressions, one of the yoga teachers had brought her mom in the mom was so not into woo woo, just like, there because her daughter wanted her there, and that was the only reason she showed up. The daughter, who's like very woo woo, all onto this stuff, somehow like she just checked out during the past life regression. Like she has no, like she said, I don't know what happened, but I just checked out, and next thing I know, you were waking everyone up, and I don't like, there was nothing. I got nothing. Meanwhile, her mom, who's not woo woo in any way, had this vivid memory of being like this like woman, had like a cooking apron on and was like about to like stirring a bowl, about to cook, and realized that her son that was pulling on her like her apron strings was her dad in this life, and realized that she had been her own grandmother.
Oh wow, that's cool.
And so her having that realization, and like, because every time we did it, I learned from my teacher, and like we sit up and everyone would talk about it, because these things you don't want to just internalize, you want to be able to express it too.
Right. Yeah.
And so her bringing that up, she was questioning me. She's like, well, is that possible? I'm like, well, she died before you were conceived, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, it's very possible. But then it got my gears going, and I was just like, well, if she was her own grandmother, how many of my ancestors' lives have I lived? Like,
yeah, maybe that's why we remember them so well.
Two sides of the same coin, I think. Because how many of our ancestors have we been? And that really blew my brain. So
yeah, that's one of those, like, I know anytime I think about the universe, or galaxies, and just what's out there and beyond, when I really have sat and contemplated it, and it's exhilarating and terrifying all at the same time, because it's so vast, and you tend to think of yourself here on this little planet as being very safe and very solid and feet on the ground and nothing can bother me. But when you start branching out and thinking about, we're just this little speck that's floating around inside this other speck that's floating around inside of another speck, and it's like, okay, you start following down that rabbit hole, and it can get really wild. I mean, and maybe that's why I discovered that I'm starseed from way back when, because when I've sat and thought about it and just tried to follow it down the line, it just keeps going and going. It's like I can't find an end. You
bring a memory up. So when I was, God, how old was I? Early 20s, must have been mid 20s, something like that. I was invited to partake in the Naraya, which is the Shoshone people's version of the ghost dance. And that was crazy, because I kept getting taken by spirit right and left, like dropping and flopping, as they say.
Yeah.
But one of the visions I had during that ceremony, I think it was the second night, I had been brought into the inner circle, because I just was like, in and out of consciousness. And I just remember falling back, seeing myself falling as I was a raven circling up, right? And I started circling up higher and higher. And I realized that sacred circle we were in, was in the circle of the valley, which is in the circle of the planet, which is in the circle of the solar system, which is in the circle of the galaxy, on and on and on. I realized all those circles were just the rings of a giant tree.
Yeah.
I landed in the branches as a raven, right, at the world tree, and I looked down, and I saw the primal god. You'd call him Chrononus, or I don't know what else. Chrononus is the name that comes to me. And he looked up at me and smiled, and I knew that I wasn't supposed to be seeing this. And as soon as I thought that, I dropped right back into my body and sat up and went,
wow,
whoa.
Now, when I was about the 12, 13-year-old stage, it seemed like a lot of stuff happened around that age for me. Is when I discovered I could lay in bed and make myself float out of my body. And I could look down and see myself lying in the bed, and I would just be like floating on the ceiling. And it was such a cool thing to do. And I would do it every night. I would sit and concentrate until I could pop up there. But I never went anywhere. I never went out of the room because I was terrified if I left the room, I would get lost and I wouldn't be able to find myself again.
That happened to me when I was 15, actually.
And when you don't have anybody to ask.
Body, and I couldn't move. I could just see my body, and I was floating up. But instead of hitting the ceiling, I went through, and I kept going up. I went through the roof, and I kept floating up. And I was like looking down. I'm like, whoa, I'm floating high. And then I realized I was passing the moon, and I went, I don't want to be going this high. And I slammed back into my body and sat up.
Yeah.
No.
I was terrified to leave the room. I was terrified to. I was so scared that
astral body. I was just there.
I would get lost. It was weird. No. And now, since all of this has started, I'll lie in bed at night and think it would be so cool if I could do that again, because then maybe I could actually travel and go see some stuff. But it's not happened. So it's like, okay, I guess I'll get there eventually. It'll come back to me.
One thing that my teacher of that class I took with all the New Age stuff said that was a little disheartening, but at the same time I kind of understood it better now that I'm older. And he said that the younger you are, the more psychic you are, and the older you are, the more you lose it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's definitely what I've always heard. It's that's why children are so and animals are just so automatically tuned in. They just
closer to the source. That's why it's been there's been less time since they left the source, and for us, we've had this physical reality for so long at this point that we're like, what was that other world like again?
Yeah, I mean,
anyway.
So I just, it's like I would love to be able to do it again, and I have a feeling that I will be. It's just I'm not ready yet. That's the only thing I can.
That's the thing.
Come up with is that I'm just not ready yet. So when I'm ready, it'll happen. It's just like people talk about getting.
Book. You just reminded me of a book I was reading back then when I was doing that stuff, and it was Flying Without a Broom, I think was the name of the book. I don't even know if I have it anymore, truthfully. And it was all about astral projection of the witch, right? So being able to fly without the broom, and it gave you exercises.
Familiar.
Right.
That actually sounds familiar. Like I've read something like that, and that was at the age when I was really into paranormal stuff and all that kind of thing. I mean, my mom would have to check books out at the library for me because I wasn't old enough to get them out because they were all in the adult section.
To see if I still have them in my little occult library. I don't think I do, though.
Mama Bear says she remembers flying as a kid.
Yeah, I had a reoccurring dream when I was a kid where I was in an Italian restaurant.
Puberty hit. That's probably what screwed it up for all of us.
Well, I just had this recurring dream where I was in this empty Italian restaurant. Obviously, it was closed, but all the chairs were up on the tables. But remember those little tiny red candles that they always had in every Italian restaurant?
Yeah. Usually in the little jars with the lace over it.
And I just remember there was no one else there, and it was like an empty space where for me to learn how to fly. I push myself up, and I'd be kind of floating and drifting down, and I'd kick myself off and be floating and kind of falling down again. But I was trying to learn how to fly, and it's the same dream over and over.
I would always dream I was falling. I was falling off the cliff, and it just, I never hit bottom. I always woke up before I hit bottom.
Right.
But I can remember having that dream over and over and over again. And I rarely remember my dreams, especially as an adult. I mean, I've even taken to keeping a notepad next to the bed, thinking if something, if I wake up and something's really still fresh, I can write it down. But
Right.
It hadn't happened yet. So again, I guess it's when I'm ready to start doing it, it'll happen. So
Right. Well, I remember when I was, God, even into my 20s, I'd have like vivid dreams every night, like 4 or 5 vivid dreams I remember every morning. And now that I'm older, it's like I'm lucky if I remember one dream a week, if that.
yeah, it's and some people I know really, they not only remember their dreams, but they help interpret dreams. And it's like I have no. Is that your dog?
Yeah, it's my dog. Mimi's that a little girl.
I can hear her whining like I want attention. Because I started looking around thinking it was my dog.
No, that was my little dog. My husband came up to get ready to go down. He's taking our son to the beach.
Ah, there you go.
So when he came
I
up, the
love the
dogs
beach.
followed.
I missed the winter the beach really bad.
You need to come to Maui.
Huh?
Come to Maui. I'll show you all the good beaches.
There you go. Well, I've been to Oahu, so I did get there finally. I was able to spend a week on Oahu, but we didn't get to. I didn't get the island hop.
About Maui.
Yeah. So I got to go to Waikiki and Honolulu and the North Shore and all that stuff,
Right.
And it was great. I was there when my son came home from his second deployment, and he flew me out to Hawaii to spend a week with him. It was like I could so live here.
Right.
If only I had the money, I could so live here. And I wanted to go to some of the other islands as well, but just wasn't in the budget. So I keep saying I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go visit the other islands.
There's a saying about Maui, Maui no ka'oi, which is a Hawaiian phrase, which means no ka'oi. I don't know. The best translation is there is no better. So it's basically saying there is nothing better than Maui when you say Maui no ka'oi, and that's the phrase for Maui. And part of the reason is, so all the other islands, their beaches are pretty much open ocean, right? Because we are an archipelago in the middle of the largest ocean of the planet.
Yeah.
But with Maui, the thing about Maui is Maui used to be bigger than the Big Island.
Oh,
that
wow.
was thousands of years ago. So it's slowly starting to sink. So Maui County is basically the islands that were the mountains of that main island, right?
Okay.
So we got Maui, Molokai, Lanai, and Ko'olawe are the 4 big islands for Maui County. And because it was part of an island, that middle part that's now under ocean makes a very shallow ocean compared to, the outer edges, which are just drop off into the deeps of the Pacific, right?
Right.
So where I live is on the interior part of that South Shore where all the best beaches in Hawaii are. The water is so calm here in the morning, it almost feels like a lake.
Oh, wow.
It's just lapping at the shore. Of course, if there's a south swell, you're not going to go swimming because people get killed from the waves sometimes. So, yeah. But I mean, the best beaches in Hawaii are here on Maui.
Yeah. Well, I know when I was there on Oahu, and we went over to the North Shore, where all the big waves, a lot of the surfing stuff goes on, and we just went and looked, because it was like.
Yeah, I don't really.
Like I don't want to get in water that's gonna roll the car over,
Right.
And it's like I like to swim.
All the North Shores in every island, because that's where the water is coming from, mainly. So even here, it's like on the north, opening between the two, between West Maui and Molokai, there's that's where the water comes in to fill in this area here.
Right.
So there's a current that comes through because it goes through and then goes out the other side. And people say don't swim too far out, even here where it's nice water, because the riptides could grab you, and next thing you know, your body's getting delivered in Tahiti. So
Yeah, exactly. When I was 10, 9 or 10, we had only been in Florida for maybe a year. Um, Everybody in the neighborhood, we would all go to the beach together, all the families in the neighborhood, and then, have a big camp out and barbecue and that kind of stuff. And myself and girlfriends that were the same age, the kids from the other families, we were all out in the water and we got caught by an undertow big time. And they say that I only went under once and then managed to fight and keep myself above water. But one of the other girls went under and didn't come back up. And fortunately, my grandfather saw it and ran out into the water, and he swam out and got her and brought her back. She was okay, but it took a while before I would go swim in the ocean again. That was kind of weird to just sucks you right down. You don't realize the strength of that until you experience it. And
I've lived next to the ocean long enough to be able to just look and see if that kind of current is going on.
Yeah.
And if I see an undercurrent, I won't swim.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely not.
And if the water's too choppy, that's another indication not to swim, because if it's too choppy, that choppiness makes the same sound as a fish in distress, so it tends to draw sharks.
Sharks. Yep.
If it's murky, choppy.
Dealt with those before too.
I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, it's like
time. Going super. The thing about you got to learn about Hawaii is if you want to swim, you got to go at 7 a.m. when the water's calm, there's no wind, because by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the trade winds kick in and the waves get crazy, and then the undercurrents start. And so I always tell people who are visiting, if you're going to go to the beach, go first thing in the morning and then spend the rest of the day doing other things. Don't do other things and then think you're going to go to the beach and have a good time, because the wind's going to blow sand in your face. The wind's going to create these crazy waves. And, that combo is just...
you could get sucked out into the middle of the Pacific Ocean. We can't find you for a couple of weeks, so, yeah. Even in Florida on the Gulf side, most people, they don't think of the Gulf of Mexico as being that dangerous, but I've seen some wild stuff happen in that Gulf, and that's just a small body of water compared to the Pacific or the Atlantic, And
I was a kid.
I've been swimming in both oceans on both sides of the coast, so it's like I prefer the Gulf because it's a lot calmer. Even as wild as it gets, it's like at least it's a little bit more contained.
When I was a kid in Costa Rica, I was at the beach with so there was 4 of us. And we're all kids. There's no adult with us.
Yeah,
the youngest gets caught in a riptide and starts getting pulled. Her brother grabs her. I grab onto him, and so whoever's grabbing gets pulled in too. And then the oldest sister was smart and went and got a stick and reached out to me with the stick, and I grabbed the stick and she was able to pull us in. But that youngest one, she almost drowned.
Yeah.
We were the brother and I were struggling just to keep ourselves from going too, and trying to pull her in at the same. It was bad.
Yeah.
We were kids. We didn't know. Don't fight the riptide. Go parallel with the shore until you get out of it, and then go in.
And then go in. Yep. That's. I learned that lesson that day.
Right. I learned it the hard way.
Yeah, that's it. I learned it the hard way. So as much as I love the beach and the ocean, I could swim all day. I'm 61 now. Is my idea of a good day at the beach is a little beach chair, set it right where the surf is breaking on the sand, and I can sit in the chair and just let the water rush over me. I'm good to go. I don't need to go out and swim anymore. If I want to swim, I'll go to the swimming pool.
But I won't swim without goggles. I want to see what's under me.
Yeah, well, that's one of the pluses.
How many times a giant sea turtle scared me because I thought it was a shark swimming up under me.
I remember a giant sea crab grabbed hold of my grandfather's toe down in Galveston Beach when I
Oh,
was a kid, and him trying to get that damn thing to let go of his foot. I mean, he nearly lost a toe over it. It almost took his
yep.
toe,
Those crabs.
and he's trying to keep me above the water so it won't grab me. It was like this huge king crab, and it was like, whoa, man, that was a crab meal for 10 just by itself. It was huge. But yeah, I mean, I love to be outdoor. I'm not athletic like I used to be because now I'm handicapped, but I love to be outside. Any excuse I can go sit outside, even in the summer when it's hot as hell. I still like to sit outside. It's
Well,
like I just do better.
I think a lot of people get that disconnection from nature because they don't spend enough time outside.
Yeah. Oh, if it's like the weather's bad here, if it gets really cold where you're in the house
Hmm.
for several days running, I can literally feel it. It's like I've got to get outside.
Cabin fever.
Big time. And we moved into the apartment where we are now a year ago, August. And it's so nice because we have a private patio with like a half wall. So you can go sit out on the patio. And unless somebody walks up and looks over your wall, they don't know you're there.
Right.
So it gives you that little bit of privacy while still letting you be out in the open. And that's enjoyable. But
We're very lucky because our neighborhood, a lot of the houses are like practically on top of each other. But we're in like a corner lot, so our closest neighbors really aren't that close to us. And then on one side of us is a 17-acre orchard with it's a mango orchard, but what we look at is like some palm or coconut trees, some dragon fruit. Dragon fruit actually grows on a type of cactus. I didn't know that. There's
wow.
koi, and then their peacocks. And then on the other side of us is the homeowners association park. So on our back lanai, our back porch, um, I feel like I'm out in the countryside.
Yeah.
But
It's cool.
Safeway is like a 2-minute drive from here. One of the main like shopping centers is like a 10-minute walk. I mean, it's like we're
Yeah.
really close to everything, but just the way things are set up around us, we feel like we're in nature all the time, which
Yeah. It's like I'm literally 3 miles from the swamp, the largest land-based swamp in the continental U.S., and that's the Atchafalaya Basin and swamp. It's 18-mile bridge to go over it and get to Baton Rouge from where we are. Yeah. So there's a real feel for. It's like you don't go to the swamp at night. I've had people say, well, "You don't go out there at nighttime." I was like, "No. You don't. You don't go in the swamp at night. You just don't do it. Just don't."
It's like you don't swim in the ocean at night either.
That's right. That's why Jaws was so popular because people were like, "Are you crazy? What are you doing getting in the water at nighttime?"
Yeah.
And I've known people to go out and swim at night in the ocean. I'm like, no, not even. Do you find kind of tie this all in? We've over an hour now, and I didn't want to keep you that long. But this has been great. I've really enjoyed this conversation a lot. Do you find that being in Hawaii and I would think the natural historical vibe of just the islands and all that they have entailed just as pieces of rock sticking up out of the ocean.
Right.
How has that, you think, helped you be able to tune in clearer or better when you're doing past lives? I mean,
Maui is probably one of the most magical places I've ever been. And I find a lot of people come here specifically for healing, like spiritual, emotional healing. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because I've noticed that the islands, not just Maui, but all the Hawaiian islands, the islands either accept you or chew you up and spit you out. There's no in between. And even if
Okay.
you're accepted, that first year is a major trial. Like everyone I know who's a transplant had that first year, it was a complete nightmare. It was like a test to see, are you willing to actually put into work to be here?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's kind of like that in the swamp. You know, it can be people who first move here that have never been to this part of the country before. It's that first year is really rough on them.
Right. Well, a lot of people don't know how to deal with living on an island. The question I get all the time is, don't you get island fever? Like, are you kidding me? Maui is so big. If I am getting island fever about the spot I'm in, I could go somewhere else. Like, I could drive all day and not be in the same spot twice. So, I mean, there's that. And then to tie in everything we've been talking about, especially since we started with the whole past life thing, I do have one last story to tell you about when I very first moved here. Not very first. I had been living here for, I think, just over a year, maybe 2 years. My mom wanted to do the road to Hana, just the two of us. And so we did the road to Hana. It's like this crazy all-day adventure. Like people, multiple places sell t-shirts that say "I survived the road to Hana," right? It's this windy mountain road on the edge of a cliff with like, you want to stop every few miles because there's amazing waterfalls and stuff. But we did the full loop and went in the back, which most people just go to Hana and then come back. But we kept going. And we reached this spot where there was like a waterfall on one side and a little parking area on the other. And all these people had like parked their trucks, opened up their trucks, and they were like selling things out of their trucks. Well, we parked in the same area where all the people were selling because that's the only parking area. And I looked across the road and there was like this little ledge, and this Hawaiian woman, she was very obvious Hawaiian woman, had set up like, looked like traditional woven, like reed woven cloth with these shell lays that she had made with like very traditional Hawaiian umbrella. She was wearing like this black muumuu with red flowers, and we had this like in-depth conversation about how like, I don't remember all the details. We were talking about Maui and Hawaii and how magical Maui is, and she said to me, like, I was talking about how Maui is the place I felt the most at home in my entire life. Like, I've never felt at home like I have here.
Yeah.
And she said that's because you were a Polynesian soul that got sent out into the world, and you finally traversed the whole world, and you finally made your way back.
Oh, that's
like,
cool.
Whoa. That, like, just talking about it gives me chicken skin. And then my mom bought one of their shell lays, and we drove off, and I looked in the rearview mirror, and she wasn't there. There was nobody there.
Yeah. That's awesome when something like that happens.
And then, like, I think a couple years ago now, we were in Hana, and I said, let's go see if that spot's still there. So we found the spot, we parked, and we went across the street to where the ledge was. There was no ledge. There was no ledge there. So I don't know where, like, so I'm pretty sure that was Pele, and she was welcoming me back home after having cast me out for centuries.
That's awesome. That's a great way to wrap this all up. Yeah. That's awesome. I know I saw an interview with somebody who was talking about going in the lava tubes, looking for certain items, but you never know at any time when lava's going to come through. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? Where are you going to go? And that's what I thought was, what if Pele's pissed off at you and you go down one of those lava chutes?
Mess with Pele.
You're done for, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, but it really helped bring like my whole life into focus, true. Because it's just like I feel like, oh, everything's been building up for me being here on Maui. Like, and the fact that Pele
you're
made a
home.
final appearance to welcome me back. And my
Yeah.
mom still has that lei she bought from her. So that just blows my mind. That it's just like,
Yeah. I mean, but you're home now. That was just,
it's home. Yeah.
that's
And
it.
we tried leaving because, a bunch of our blonde friends who grew up on Maui was like, don't let him grow up here. Our son is blonde, like as blonde as you can be. Like his hair is platinum. We
Yeah.
didn't
My
even,
brother's hair was the same. It was white. It was so
and it's
blonde.
still platinum. Like it's
Yeah.
not darkening at all here. So a lot of our blonde friends are like, don't let him grow up here. It's going to be reverse racism, right? And he's going to get picked on for being blonde. And so we thought, oh, well, we better move back to the mainland. I didn't want to go in the first place. And then winter hit and we were so ready to come back. But we ended up being away about 14 months before we moved back to Maui. And now it's like, there's nowhere else in the world I want to
Yep.
live.
Never going to leave again.
That was the
I know when I was there.
oh, we left home. That was a mistake. Don't do that.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, no, it's, I know people ask me, why am I staying in Louisiana? Because I came back to take care of my mom. And it was like, is in a lot of ways, it's home. I was born here. I'm Cajun blood, it's just, it's just part of me. And
Right.
so, yeah, it's hard to walk away from that. And you don't realize it until you've been away and you come back and it's like you feel like, I can breathe.
When we
'Cause you're
landed
home.
here, after we moved back, like when we were coming in for a landing, okay, not only was there a rainbow outside the window when we looked out, but I felt this like massive weight just lift off my shoulders I didn't even realize was there. And it was just
Yeah.
like this feeling of, oh, finally I'm home.
Yeah. Yep. I get you. Well, Jonathan, we've been at this almost an hour and a half, a couple of minutes shy, and I didn't mean to keep you this long.
Oh, it's okay. It's been amazing.
But this has been a wonderful conversation. I've learned a lot about, when you're talking about the past life regressions and stuff, with ideas of where to look for more information, and which I was furiously taking notes while you were talking. And after the fact,
I'm not so sure
I'll have to go back and
used, but I know this book is out there for anybody looking. Like this is like an old edition. It's not going to have the same cover, but I know this book is still in print.
Right, and I'm sure I'll be going back to the beginning and replaying it so I can write everything down that I missed before. So I can start looking. I want to thank you so much for coming on. I have so enjoyed your company.
Oh, and, thank you for the
and
advice.
everything you've taught me a little bit tonight. This has been great. I've really enjoyed it. So you're welcome to come back anytime you like. Just say the word.
Oh, thank you.
Everybody, I guess I will say goodbye for now. So aloha, because that works in either direction. And just everybody have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon and evening. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
And we will see y'all next time.